Hello, this is S.K. Williams, and today is the 4th of July, and the United States of America is celebrating its independence from Great Britain. Always conceptualized as a struggle by a band of brothers, an impoverished few rising up to fight the most powerful empire on earth in the grand struggle against tyranny and oppression, as typified by the tyrannical King George III. Of course, this mythos is what we hear every 4th of July, but in real life, King George III was not a tyrant. It doesn't really matter that America's founders called him one. The founding fathers of America may well have said King George III was a tyrant, and they certainly listed tyrannies they attributed to him in the Declaration of Independence. Or rather, I shouldn't say that, because that sounds like they are falsely accusing him. Rather, they listed things that they alleged were tyrannies to him. Now, some of the things they allege weren't really his fault at all, and many of them, if you know the facts, aren't really that awful, like telling the colonists they cannot move west of the Appalachians. That's not tyranny. That's telling you can't steal Indian land. That's the problem with the mythos of the American Revolution. And I've never been particularly fond of revolutionaries as heroes. I don't lionize the rebel. Although I realize that our culture does, especially after the American Revolution. America's founding fathers are seen as heroes with no resources, fighting in poverty as a band of rebels with no hope of success who overcome the odds and cast off the chains of tyranny, grinding them down into freedom. It is a very powerful narrative in our world, and of course it justifies the existence of the United States of America. But it's not true. America's founding fathers were wealthy, and America was actually a very wealthy part of the British Empire. And another myth you often hear is that America threw off the yoke of foreign rule, as if Britain was foreign. In reality, America was part of Britain. It was part of the British Empire. They were British colonies. And I'm not saying that Britain was perfect or King George III was perfect, but the revolution was far more about putting into practice certain political theories, as well as getting certain things like the king out of the way of gaining more profit for a very wealthy class of men, who incidentally also had aid from France. The 4th of July, however, is also another great day of commemoration. It is a day of wonder, celebration, merriment. It is my birthday. And on my birthday, I always think of time. Time passes. Ever forward, ever forward, ever onward forward. Thanks to relativity, we know that the rate in which we experience the passage of time varies with speed, although we don't truly notice that as we live through it, because we live within the context of time. Indeed, we would have to go incredibly fast to even be able to detect it, and even then, time for us would feel like it's passing normally. If we were to go 50% the speed of light, we would also be traveling at 50% time. In other words, for every hour that passes for us, 2 hours would pass for those outside, not traveling at 50% the speed of light. And that it still doesn't change the fact that to us it would be a normal passage. And it doesn't change the fact that it's onward, ever onward. The question of whether time can be reversed, turned backward, is one that has always fascinated me, and I have always wanted to travel through time. And of course I wouldn't mind reliving my life, both because I have regrets and the old usual if I knew then what I knew now, thought many have as they age and go through time. But with me, it's more than that, and I don't know if I can quite articulate it, but I don't just want to go back because I regret, but it feels like I should. As if what was not to be, or perhaps it was, but it was meant to be undone. Time has always, like I said, been a singular obsession with me. I have always loved time travel. One of my animated creations I did for iClone, which I intended eventually to use in stories but never did, and may be able to recreate or perhaps find on a backup that wasn't destroyed, were the black uniforms that I and my companion, who is named Anne Jill for anyone who wonders, the red-headed girl in some of my videos that are animated, the black suit coats they wear with white cuffs, white lapels, and a white stripe at the bottom. Even though the creation of this went backwards, I had decided that those were time travel uniforms, created for a time agency, where these two, one of which of course being me, would work for an agency that ensures the integrity of time. I also came up with an idea for clergy time travel, or for various other time travel stakes. I've always loved the idea of time travel, and I've always wanted to do it. And that is my most sincere prayer, to traverse time, to see distant ages past or distant ages yet to come, to see how if one small thing is changed, it may change others, to alter a history by saying a single word, to see what could have been and what never was. Such thoughts have always been something very important to me as well. They're part of my identity, they're part of who I think I am, they're part of how I think. And yet, here I am, another year older, going only forward, ever forward, at the rate in which time confines me. Not free to traverse it as I will. And yet, here I am, still thinking of how I may attain that great childhood dream and hope, even, and perhaps to fulfill my own dream and aspiration of today. Time has always been this odd concept, where we feel its passage differently, we perceive it differently, we see its moods and eddies and changes and colors, but it has always been something that is both understood and not understood, something with which we live within the context of. Much like space, time is not simply something that exists, it is something that we exist within. And the same, of course, is true of God. And these things do seem related. For perhaps indeed space and time are simply the reflections of how God would order his own thoughts. And yet, here we are, wondering with all of our theories, from Newton's arrow going forward to relativity to quantum mechanics to whatever lies beyond that. For I am not alone in wondering if time travel is possible. I am not alone in wondering whether the past can be revisited or revised, altered, to suit some other end or to correct some past wrong. Others have also made such dreams and darings. And yet here, I am thinking on my birthday and hoping to traverse time, to make meaningless the dates on a calendar which can be changed at a whim and the wave of a hand, to look at all of time as a place that I can go, to master it, to control it, to be what I want it to be. That is perhaps one of the most interesting aspects, indeed, of time and chance and fortune. I have little else to say, of course. Today is my birthday, and today I think of time, and I think of traveling through time. I think, I hope, I pray, I aspire, and maybe, just maybe, today is the day when today becomes a meaningless word. For if I were to time travel today to the past or to the future, today would only be a starting point, but it would not be the totality. If I were to go back a year, then both July 4th, 2024 and July 4th, 2023 would both be the day on which I time traveled. How would one mark the invention of time travel? Perhaps if we build a time machine, we can mark it from the date it is created, but not used. That is more than likely the way it would be. But for me, there is both a practical, scientific, and mystical aspects of time, and that, I think, should be honored. I shall take my leave of you now. I have little else to say. So thank you, God bless, and goodbye.